First thing is the election of officers, and as the board president serving as presiding officer will entertain a motion to begin the process of election of officers.
So move.
Craig?
I'll second.
Christine? All in favor, say aye.
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 First, yep, okay. First is election of the president. I'd like to make the first nomination if possible. I'd like to nominate Craig Howery.
Thank you.
I'll second
Okay, we got two. Any other nominations for president?
I'd like to nominate Christine.
Okay, Bruce? Second?
Second.
We can do a voice vote, if that would be okay with everyone. All in favor for Craig, say aye.
Aye.
that. Aye.
Aye. 3. Those in favor for Christine?
Aye.
2. So Craig, you're the president.
Thank you very much.
I turn everything over to you.
Right this second?
No, just a second. Here you go.
Oh,
Have
boy.
at it, oh
Oh,
boy.
boy. They'd be the first one to use it in 25 years. Just for the heck of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is vice president. And I'll nominate Arlen Halverson. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Bruce? Okay, any other nominees? Okay.
Thank you.
Switch spots. Let's see, which one do they have next? Clerk. Any nominations for the district clerk spot?
You need to vote
Need a vote?
on the
Oh.
vice president.
Oh, okay. All those in favor of Arlen as vice president, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. All right. Moving on to clerk.
I nominate Christine.
I'll second. Any other nominees?
Do you accept?
I was actually going to nominate Bruce.
Okay, so we got, what, second for,
I didn't want to do it, but that's okay.
You don't have to accept it.
I would rather not accept it if you don't want.
okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay. Hearing no other nominees then, all in favor of Christine serving as clerk, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you, Christine.
Carries 5-0. Thank you, Christine. And finally, treasurer. Any nominations for treasurer?
I'll nominate Kate.
Okay, I'll second. Any other nominations?
I nominate Bruce, or do you? It's up to you.
Okay, I'll second that as well. So, all those in favor of Kate as treasurer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? None. All those in favor of Bruce, please signify by saying aye.
The one vote.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay, very good, thank you, Kate. And someone will go over the details of the responsibilities of the treasurer.
All right, so.
Jeff can help you.
Gotcha.
All right, then moving along, we have committee assignments. So, that'd be easier to read it from here, I think.
I would just like to suggest, I know Kate and Bruce
I've got it here.
You got it?
considered the agenda was a little overwhelming, So if, you do not need to go quickly through this, if you have any questions about what these committee assignments are, or how often we meet or anything, you feel free to bring them up now, because, otherwise, you
Yeah.
fly through them and,
Yep.
and you're not aware of what you're getting into. There might be something that might be disclosed or interest so.
Okay, let's see how it goes. The first one is the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards delegate receives regular legislative newsletters from WASB, copies of new laws, and when deemed appropriate, conveys information about those items to the board. And that's about, I want to say a couple of times a month, probably, is the newsletter. In November, the delegate attends a one-day delegate workshop at which, together with delegates from all over the state and the WASB Policies and Resolutions Committee members, any policy changes and resolutions to be considered at the January convention are discussed and formulated. Before that meeting, the delegate should try to ascertain whether the local board has any concerns to be addressed at the workshop. The delegate also represents the board at the three-day convention in Milwaukee in January. It's typically about the middle of January, I think. And carries to that meeting any direction for voting on the proposed resolutions that the board cares to give. Ann Molitor held this position in 2021, and I served as the alternate. That's something that I did for many years. It's really a pretty kind of enjoyable exercise if you are able to get away and go to the convention. I would highly recommend it. Anyone interested? Any volunteers? I can do it. I could continue to do that.
I can serve as your alternate.
Okay.
Because I think you and I are in a position where
Yep.
the most easily.
Okay. Okay, next is Co-Curricular Committee. This committee, comprised of 2 teachers, 1 administrator, and 1 board member, meets to review specific requests for program review, which might include changes in Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association policy, major or minor sport changes, and the creation of new positions. I held this position last year. Anyone else care to do that? Jump in?
I just asked, I mean, this is something that also works on coaches' salaries and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Because I was on it as a teacher, so I think in some ways I shouldn't be involved.
Should not?
Should not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, having been a coach and having a son who's a coach and knowing, I guess, enough of them, I think in some ways
Okay.
it'd be probably wise for them not to be on it.
Anyone else?
I'd be happy to do it.
Kate? Any interest in an alternate? Anyone?
I can be an alternate.
Okay. Kate and Arlen? Good. Village of McFarland liaisons. Generally a village resident who is responsible to attend any village board meetings or committee meetings on topics that relate directly to the school district. Past history would project 2 or 3 meetings annually. 11 years ago, it was decided that the position would be filled on an as-needed basis. Arlen and Christine held these positions in 2021 with Tom Allen as alternate. What are we thinking, Arlen, Christine? Anybody?
This is one I'd be very interested in doing just because of the work that I've done with the village.
Okay.
Could I get on there too?
Bruce
Unless Christine, you want to be on there?
and Arlen? All right. Appointment to CISA convention. Pursuant, for village liaison? Arlen?
No, it's not two positions. And then I'm happy to serve.
Oh, for village liaison?
Yep.
So there's 2.
Okay. That will work fine. Pursuant to section 116.021C Wisconsin statutes and section 116.021A Wisconsin statutes, the board needs to appoint a school board member as its representative to the 2021 CISA convention and served as the representative to the convention with Christine as the alternate. Any interest in that one, Christine? Anyone? Anybody else?
Anyone interested for that?
What exactly, again, explain that again, Greg, sorry.
Basically, they look for a person to attend the CISA convention, which is a one-day affair.
Yeah.
As Angie's, as always, all over
Thank you,
this thing. Did you say 17th? 15th at 1? Okay.
I was interested in it, but no, I have family vacation planned,
It's going to be a virtual.
Virtual?
so I can attend it from Minnesota?
If Minnesota has broadband, sure. So you'd be interested, Bruce?
I would.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Let's see, do I need an alternate? Have I got an alternate out there?
I'm happy to be alternate.
Kate, very good, thank you. On to Dane County School Board Consortium. The Dane County School Board Consortium is open to any interested school board member. In the past, we have designated one board member as a designee in case it was necessary to represent the board's interest on any relevant topics. Ann and Ireland agreed to serve on this committee in 2021.
I'd like to do it, because I'd like to get it going, because I don't think we've ever met.
I don't,
since-
I had that
And
for
you
2
know-
years, and I know that we didn't meet.
And I don't know why we don't get the boards together to talk. We're all neighbors, we're all got the same challenges.
Especially now.
Yeah, I think that should be.
Okay. All
Do you
right, I
guys
got-
agree with that, or what do you guys think? That's my opinion. How do you guys feel?
I think it'd be good.
It has a purpose, you know?
And it just, for whatever reason, doesn't happen all that often.
Everybody gets busy.
Okay. Anyone volunteer to serve as the alternate for the, Bruce? Okay. Good. Business and Education Partnership Council. The Business and Education Partnership Council oversees and directs the business and education partnership efforts in the district. The council meets every other month from September until May. Past in-person meetings were traditionally scheduled over the noon hour in the district office. Craig Howry served in the position for 2021 with Ann Molitor as an alternate. Any interest in that one as the representative? If not, I can do it. I'll do it again.
Thanks, Greg.
How about an alternate?
I'll be an alternate.
Kate? Thank you. Employee Relations Committee. Christine Pribino and Arlen Helverson agreed to serve as the Professional Staff Employee Relations Committee for 2021 with Craig Howry as an alternate. You two still interested in carrying on in that? Christine?
Yeah, this is my first year and I feel like we really have a number of things going. I'd like to
Yep.
continue.
Okay. Christine, thank you. Alternate? I can do alternate still.
Do you want two? It looks
We
like
want
there
two
were
people.
2 people on there.
Oh, yeah, 2 people on.
Then
Arlen?
you want to be it?
Do you?
No, it's fine, I can be alternate.
Okay, I'll do it. Craig and Christine, Arlen, alternate. Thank you. WEVA Career
Nope.
Academy.
And before we go off of the
Oh,
professional staff, just note that there's a meeting at 4:30 this coming Thursday for Berserk. And that's held at Wabisa Intermediate School.
Yep, okay. Okay, Craig Howry and Arlen Helverson agreed to serve in this ad hoc support staff employee relations committee for 2021 with Christine as alternate. Arlen, are you interested in staying on that?
No, I think I'm gonna back out of that.
Okay,
Yeah, I kind of like to think that same thing, I would definitely be willing and see the work that they're doing at the time.
That's good.
gotcha. Christine,
I'm happy to work with Kristen and you.
there you go. Kate?
As an FYI, the next meeting of that committee is next Tuesday at 4 PM at Indian Mountain Middle School.
Anyone interested in the alternate in the support staff?
You'll be there. Yeah, usually we have
Bruce?
one.
Okay, Bruce, thank you. WEVA, Career Academy, and remind me again? ISWI.
I know. Insight,
In,
oh darn it. What is it, guys?
what's the ISWI? Insight School. Yeah, okay. Christine served as the representative for 2021. Still interested, Christine?
Yes, I want to go in since that's my first year,
Yep.
been working, closely with them.
Perfect. Do we not have an alternate for that one? It doesn't appear so. The next one is the WEVA 3-year review representatives. Ann and Craig agreed to serve as the WEVA 3-year review representatives for 2021. The next third-year review will occur in 24-25, and representatives will be appointed in May of 2024. Does that mean we just leave that one for now? Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it.
We need to assign somebody to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure Ann Molitor wants to do that.
Probably not. I'll go ahead and do that one. The 3-year review. Then we need one more also. Bruce. All right. Okay, thank you very much all, and okay, thank you very much, one and all, and as Jeff had mentioned, whatever questions you've got concerning a more detailed explanation as to what you need to do for this committee, just don't be afraid to ask. All right, we have some consent agenda items, including the minutes of the April 19th meeting, some professional staffing recommendations, and some co-curricular staffing recommendations. I would look for a motion to approve. Okay, Christine
I'll second.
and Arlen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Motion passes 5-0. All right, moving on. Okay. Personnel items, no vote necessary. We're looking at a student council report. Do we have anybody? Oh, I see somebody up there. All right.
Lizzie is here too.
Okay, all right. Will and Lizzie, welcome. Thank you very much, and proceed as you wish.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Lizzie, you can go first.
Okay, I will go first. I'm just gonna give a kind of a quick update again. So, for some senior class end of year things, we were actually able to take a class picture on the field. You can't really see anyone's faces, but we're all together in a picture. So there's something for the yearbook. And also we have planned a senior day. Oh, there's the senior class picture. So we're all pretty much just small dots, but it's a
Yeah,
great
it spells out. It's really hard to see through the screen and through my phone, but it does spell out 2021, which is obviously the year we're going to graduate. So hopefully you get to see that in a bit more detail. I don't think this medium really does it justice.
Yeah, and then also we have planned a senior day at the end of the year, similar to what would be a class trip, but somewhat simplified. And we're still gonna be able to do our parade in our like caps and gowns to the other schools. We're just doing it outside, and we're all pretty excited about that. Also, prom is this Saturday, pending weather cooperation. And I thought something interesting is that we actually switched to a gender neutral prom court this year. So the top 10 people from each class, regardless of gender, are the top 10 people for court. And then the top 2 are voted as prom royalty instead of prom king and queen in order to be more inclusive. So that's a change that we just made that is pretty exciting.
For sure, yes. And just to piggyback on Lizzie's comments about the senior day, actually the 4 class officers, which is Lizzie, myself, Luke Manley, and Olivia Peely, have been meeting bi-weekly with Mrs. Nichols and Mrs. Bird Johnson to really hammer into graduation planning, which we hope to have more info coming out about soon. All the senior staff, class gifts, class everything. We've been meeting pretty consistently to work on that as the year winds down here. The other big thing this week is it's the beginning of AP testing. Had our first AP test today, AP Poli-Sci. I was there. I can't really say too much about it or I'm going to get everyone's scores disqualified, but I think overall it was a very good experience, and I really appreciate the effort that went into it from Mrs. Wink, all of the high school staff. Because I'm not in the high school every day. I felt like it was very easy to come in and take this test with very little stress, very little wondering what's going on. There was a lot of great communication ahead of time that helped hopefully ensure everyone's success on the test. But other than that, I think that's all that we've got going on at the high school really this
week. A comment on AP stuff as well. I was just gonna say with the quarter system, it was definitely more difficult because a lot of what used to be a year-long class was shortened. But I think all the teachers have done a really, really good job of making sure we learned all the material. And I honestly did not think I was gonna be prepared, and now I feel prepared for my test next week. So shout out to teachers for really working through that.
Yeah, definitely big time. As she was saying, it's hard with there was a big gap in between the end of our AP classes and the beginning of the AP tests because of the quarter system this year. But my teachers have been leading study sessions every week that people can Zoom into, and I got emails this morning saying good luck, and if you want to debrief with me afterwards, you can come to this Zoom room, we can meet, we can talk about the exam as much as possible without getting everyone's scores disqualified. So definitely a big shout out to teachers.
Anything else? Anything from the board? Any questions?
I'll just comment that the high school does have a website, just so you know. And they also have graduation information on one of those tabs, including end-of-year events such as the group photo, the senior sunrise, parking space decorating, senior breakfast, and senior parade, which Lizzie just did mention. So.
Yep, that's all kind of part of what we're considering our senior day, so we're excited.
Congrats.
The idea is that each event sort of leads into the next.
I just want to say thank you both. Congratulations on graduating. Thanks so much for being our student representative. It's been really great getting to know you this year, and I just wish you the best of luck.
A little bit hard to hear you, but I think I get the gist of what you were saying. And thank you as well for making this opportunity. It's been a great experience.
Sure.
I did not hear you. Oh, what did you say? Sorry.
Is there any chance that we can still have a senior exit interview, or is that just totally out of the reach?
Oh, I
Is there-
think that it's an option.
So, what I'm not involved. This would be, I think, a better question for high school administration. But from what I have
Okay.
heard as a student, I believe we're doing optional senior exit interviews, which you have to sign up for ahead of time, and then you'll get an email. I think it's virtual, is my understanding.
Oh, it's all
And
gonna be virtual?
that's my understanding. I would ask the high school administration for sure, because they know better than me.
I didn't know.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Jeff just joined us.
Yeah, we're still working the details out to find out how many students want to do it, and then how can we connect them with community members, or just interview with our school counselors as well. You know, the concern obviously is bringing people into the building, so details are still being worked through depending on how students respond.
Yeah, I think regardless of how we end up doing it mechanically, it's just a fantastic event that I know the people that are doing, the interviewers probably enjoy it more than the interviewees in most cases, but I think it's a really valuable tool, and it would be unfortunate if we were to miss it altogether. So I think whatever way we can make that happen would be great.
I
I'll
think the
bring
students
that back
got
to
just
student
as
services,
excited
and
about it
please
as.
know,
as
it will
we
not
did.
disappear, that's for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? I'd just like to echo Christine and thank you too for being with us this year. It's been a obviously a very difficult and different sort of year, and you guys held in there like champs, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you. Hope you could hear it. All right. Thanks very much, guys. So, we'll move into public comments, and
There's one. You got one?
Tom?
Yep.
I believe we got one written comment for you this evening, and I don't know if there's anyone else in the audience that's wanting to do this, but I'll go ahead and read this one. It's from Tom Mooney, 6205 Pleasant Run. Subject of interest is teacher appreciation. It's truly unfortunate that as a school district and a nation, 1 week out of the whole year is identified as Teacher Appreciation Week, when in fact the McFarland School District, along with the nation, should recognize and appreciate teachers throughout the year on a daily basis. I strongly encourage the school district to do the right and practical thing and simply talk and listen to teachers on their professional suggestions on how to better support kids to reach their potential. Historically speaking, the knowledge, passion, vision, and relationships that teachers bring to the classroom is the foundation in which the McFarland School District has earned its reputation. It's the classroom teachers that will be instrumental in transitioning the McFarland School District from an above average to an exceptional school district. Finally, reach out to teachers throughout the year to acknowledge everything they do. Our teachers are invaluable and priceless. I guess I would add my agreement to that. We certainly should show our appreciation towards our classroom teachers, obviously more often than 1 day or 1 week a year. So hopefully we can find a way to support our teachers more frequently. Make sure they understand how valuable they are indeed. Okay, any comments? Angie?
I'd like to now invite the public if they would like to
Oh,
come in.
yes.
All right, if you'd like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of the Zoom window. In the Q&A, we ask of you to type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you have discussed this item prior to the meeting with any administration or school board president. After submitting that information, I would transfer you over to speak to the board. And we'll give a minute for people to do so.
Thanks, Angie.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Christina's yours not working.
How about right after this, I'll hand
Yeah.
mine over to you. All right. I do not see, and no one is registering to speak
Okay.
at this time. So.
Not seeing anyone wishing to speak, we'll move on to District Administration Report. Jeff, it's all yours.
All right. Well, our first up is the school status reminders and updates, and I get to just hand it over to Melissa and Lauren.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And Angie, are you able to share our presentation? I'm hoping that was a yes. I didn't hear it if it was.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Angie, I can't see what you're on to know if you're on the right slide, just so you're aware.
I'll help.
Fantastic. All right. So today we have our school status report. You will hear a health update that will include information regarding the Public Health Order 16 and receive an update on a on-site vaccination clinic we will be hosting. Melissa will then share an update on our planning around a virtual option and a potential early release option. We will have some exciting updates regarding our district equity leadership to share. And then we will end our presentation with information about upcoming board meetings and always appreciations. So that is what you will see and hear tonight. All right, so if you can jump to our health updates, which slide 4. So Public Health Order number 16 was just released and it goes into effect on May 5th. There are really no changes for school, but there is an increase in gathering limits both for inside and outside with food and without. So this will have an impact if we have to move graduation inside. However, at this point, there is nothing necessarily that we will see an impact for schools. We also have the exciting opportunity to host a vaccination clinic for anyone 16 and up with Forward Pharmacy. The high school administration is working with Forward Pharmacy to host this clinic. The first one will be tomorrow and the second dose will be on May 25th. And we currently have around 60 individuals signed up, and this was open to our students and our families to sign up for. All right, I will turn it over to Melissa to share planning for our 21-22 school year.
Thank you, Lauren. We are going to share updates on 2 big topics, the first of which is virtual option planning for next school year. We recognize that we may have a need for virtual options continuing into the next school year. Minimally, this would be for students who may need to quarantine for a short period of time, but we may have options available all the way up for students or families with medical situations who would want a virtual option for the entire school year. As we've moved through this school year, we have heard feedback from our resident McFarland families attending WEVA that WEVA did not meet their needs or expectations for learning in all cases. There were some families who felt disconnected from our district and shared concerns about class sizes at WEVA, as well as a disconnect between the curriculum at WEVA and that of our brick and mortar schools. We're also hoping to gather additional feedback from you this evening from families via a survey that we plan to send out this week. And that survey will be sent to all families, including and especially including our resident families who are attending WEVA, as well as teachers through building leadership team meetings, as well as during our PSERC, Professional Staff Employee Relations Committee meeting later this week. As we look at all of that information together, our goal is to present a final option to the school board and community at the June 7th board meeting. But depending how quickly our planning moves along, we may have an update and final plan ready to share with the board at your next board meeting on May 17th. As we've started our planning, there are a few considerations that we have in mind, but we're hoping to hear from you this evening what questions or additional considerations you want us to keep in mind as we continue our planning. So looking at this list, the first is WEVA will continue to be a virtual option available to all K-12 students. For families who feel like that is working well for them, they can continue with that option. However, we're also looking at an in-house virtual option available for all K-12 students as well. That would be a change from this year where our in-house virtual options are only available in grades 3 through 12. As we're moving forward, if we are going to have that all year long virtual option taught by McFarland brick and mortar teachers, we would have that be available down through kindergarten as well. However, our current planning would not have a virtual option at 4K because the goals of our 4K program are not well served by having virtual instruction. A lot of our goals have to do with socialization and learning the rules and routines of school. 4-year-olds are not compulsory age to attend school. You don't actually have to attend school in Wisconsin until you're 7 years old. So if there are families with medical concerns, they could choose to do homeschooling or just keep their children home during their 4K year, and then join us for kindergarten, either in an in-person or virtual option at that point. Following some more feedback that we've heard from families this year, the in-house virtual option, we are hoping to guarantee it for a full school year. We heard from many families that they chose WEVA this year because we weren't able to guarantee them a full year virtual option in the brick and mortar setting. So we would want to have that guaranteed going forward this year. But the in-house virtual option may look very different from the program that we're offering right now. It may be concurrent learning like we currently have in grades 6 through 12. It may have a dedicated teacher, or it may have, mixed grade options. The schedule might look different from what we currently have. It would likely include both synchronous, which is live instruction, and recorded asynchronous learning options for students. There may be some subjects that are taught live by a teacher, and there may be some subjects where they're getting recordings to support their learning as they go forward. Now, either within that virtual option that we have planned or through some other mechanism, we are going to make sure that there's an opportunity for students in quarantine to continue their learning. We are hoping and tentatively planning to have those be one and the same, where we have some sort of virtual option available where maybe students are enrolled in all school year. And then if there's a student who needs to quarantine for a short period of time, they would join that class. But whether they're the same or two different options, we would have options available for those quarantine students should that be a need continuing into next school year. With our planning, there would be limited movement between in-person and virtual. Now, quarantine students would be the exception where they could jump in right away. But for other families, we'd ask that they make a commitment for a term, whether that's a quarter or a semester based on which school they're in. But we wouldn't have the option for families to be making multiple movements in and out of virtual or in-person learning throughout the year. One piece of feedback we've heard from teachers is that to be able to teach concurrently, which means teach live students and virtual students at the same time, is a huge undertaking. And so if we are going to ask teachers to teach concurrently next year, we're looking into having additional compensation, like an overload pay for teachers, depending on how many virtual students they have in their class. We also are looking to have additional technology support, perhaps specialized cameras or other equipment to make that concurrent teaching go as smoothly as possible. Those additional compensation pieces would also include any teachers that we're asking to create asynchronous lessons so that students could access that content at their own time. One additional piece of information we have for you is just some data about what students are utilizing our virtual options this year by school. So at CEPS, as you know, there's currently not an in-house virtual option, but we do currently have 40 resident McFarland students attending WEVA in grades K through 2. And we also have 36 students, and that was as of the end of December, but 36 students who are either homeschooled this year, or again, they're under that compulsory grade age of attendance. And so they are, not technically homeschooled, but they're not attending in-person school right now either. At Wabisa, we currently have 20 students attending WEVA and 22 students in the Wabisa virtual option. And that's down from about 54 students on February 1st. At middle school age, we have 17 students attending WEVA and 60 students in the virtual option, which is down from 117 students on February 1st. And at the high school, there are 20 students attending WEVA and 163 virtual students at the high school, which is down from 227 on February 1st. So hearing kind of the considerations we already have in mind, and then seeing a little bit of data about the students who are currently utilizing virtual options, what we're hoping to get from the board this evening is what questions you have for us or what considerations you would like us to keep in mind as we continue our planning. Our intent is not to be able to address all of the questions this evening, but we want to make sure that we have, your latest thinking in mind so that when we do come back with a presentation and a plan, we'll be able to address the questions that you have and be prepared with responses. So do you have any questions or considerations for us to keep in mind? And Lauren has volunteered to take notes through this discussion.
All right, very good. Speak up. Anybody?
I think you got a great plan. I was very impressed with it. I really applaud you guys. It looks like you got something that's really can work. I think you make a lot of people happy.
Christine?
So consideration, not a question to be answered, like you said. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Yeah, my mic wasn't working before. I apologize. Angie handed me hers, so thanks, Angie. So because each of the building did such a different mode or model of virtual learning, a consideration for me would be to look at it by building. So with the teachers who were fully virtual, ask them in the younger grades, ask them what went well, what did not go well, ask the teachers who were doing in person what went well, what did not go well with the connection to virtual, especially probably maybe their biggest challenge would be when students were quarantining from their in-person rooms. And then at the high school and middle school, we knew that they were doing asynchronous and synchronous. So I just feel like that we need to get the teacher feedback from all those different modes and based on building because they were just so different. And I mean, kudos, of course, to everyone who pulled off each of those different types of models to make it work for the students. And so I would just ask what went well, what didn't go well, what would be changed, because now we have a wealth of information from them.
Bruce?
I would second exactly what Christine said. And at the high school, I would even argue that within departments, it's a different game. And so it would be kind of nice to differentiate between the different departments. The other question is, how long, in some ways this could be one of these blessings that comes out of COVID. We had the WEVA curriculum kind of doing its own thing, and you had our school district doing its own thing. How long, realistically, would it take to try to start to dovetail those two so that in some ways a kid could go out if they were having the illness or whatever it was, and then be able to come back and actually be able to stay pretty much on task, at least as far as curriculum goes. Is that something you guys have looked at, or is that something in the process that's being looked at?
I won't have, like I said, I won't have all of the answers this evening, but a quick comment on that. Our WEVA schools are a non-instrumentality charter school, and they have their own board of education and their own kind of curriculum control mechanism and process. And their curriculum, is specifically designed to work in the virtual setting as best as it can. So we don't currently have plans in place to try to dovetail the two systems because they really are kind of like sister schools that are within the same umbrella of the district but operate independently.
Bruce, was your question related to also what are we thinking as far as this 21-22 planning and beyond, or is this 21-20? So
Yeah,
that would be a question you want us
Looking
to
down the road. It would seem to me.
to reflect on later.
Yeah, because I just think it has so much potential if we can do that. I don't know, again, it may not be possible to do that, but.
Certainly a consideration would have to be the financial resources of the district.
I have a few comments, questions. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I know K through 2 has just been in person up to this point, so obviously they've never done the virtual learning. I feel like that's going to be a huge learning curve for them because they haven't had this year of experience. So whether it's decided that there's additional teachers added to do the virtual option, or they're doing some kind of concurrent learning, I definitely think that talking to the staff is going to be really important. From parent feedback that I've gotten from I guess more La Visa hybrid model is that there hasn't really been a great option for when kids are quarantined because there is that separate teacher doing the virtual learning. So they're kind of, when they're quarantined, they're not able to participate with their classroom. So that's something that I think we really need to look at, because for those kids that are only going to be out, you know, for 10 or 14 days, like, is it disruptive to go into a virtual learning program with the kids who are already virtual for the entire quarter? Or is it more disruptive, I guess, to keep them in their current classroom doing some kind of concurrent learning with their teacher? So I guess I would ask, with the younger students, how is that going to work? Additionally, you had mentioned increased compensation for maybe teachers that felt that they could do concurrent learning. And my question is, how is that going to work for the high school specifically? Because those students are going into lots of different classrooms, so it seems like most of those teachers would likely be doing concurrent learning, if that's what they agreed to.
Yeah, thank you for all of these questions.
I have another one. I know you mentioned technology. What will be the technology needs, including the learning management system, Canvas, or is that something that's going to be continue to be expected and systematized, or is there new technology consideration? Once again, just a thought.
Certainly, and I can answer part of that. We will be continuing with Canvas at most all grades. They're looking into alternative options, perhaps at K2, just because of developmental needs of students, but we will continue with that learning management system going forward, and hopefully even continuing when we're fully post-pandemic with that. But we can get you more details about the additional technology needs and considerations when we put our full plan together.
So for instance, school districts in Dane County, some districts that didn't have a virtual school affiliated with them were using double camera systems with audio that's attached to the teacher with a tracking device. So if they moved around the classroom, hopefully not too much this year, evidently, but that one camera would always track that student. It also usually had a second display where you'd have up front the teacher display, but in the back you would see the display of the other students that are at home or in different locations for their learning. So that is the way out there thinking, and there is a few school districts that went ahead with some of that planning. But that certainly did limit down the number of options, particularly when you got to high school, of how could you invest in all of that in every classroom. You could not afford to make that. The district could afford it, but would the district want to allocate those resources towards roughly 15 to 20,000 a room?
Oh my.
So
$20K per room?
roughly.
Okay.
I have another consideration. You mentioned, or in the plan mentions that particular courses might not be available for some students, and I think a consideration that we got a lot of feedback on was, what are those courses? How does that affect students' career, course, post, graduate work, as well as equity issues? So as a consideration, can you look at how there's a differential impact perhaps on which classes are offered or not? Once again, a consideration.
Yeah, and I think I forgot to mention that one out loud in it. I was reminded of it with Bruce's question about department by department. And so just the availability for each department to best translate their learning and their teaching to a virtual platform. And then if one department isn't able to make that transition as easily, we also have options like students could enroll in 1 or 2 classes at WEVA and the rest of their courses with a McFarland virtual option. Also, we have online programs that we've always used for students who have specialized needs. Odysseyware is one to kind of supplement the courses that we're able to offer with McFarland teachers virtually. So our hope would be to offer our full catalog or as much of it as possible, but it might be by piecing a few different options together to get all of their courses available for students.
I've got just a couple brief questions here. And you actually answered one. I was wondering about the percentage of virtual students that we currently have. Do you suspect that sometime between the end of this school year and the start of 21-22 that we'll see a drop in the number of students that are going to do the virtual option? Once we get out of this school year over the summer, do you feel like there will be more folks that will be comfortable sending their students into school as opposed to either of the virtual options? And do we have a vehicle by which we can know as early as possible how many virtual students are going to choose and stay with that option? And to piggyback on that, is there some number out there someplace where it wouldn't pay to offer the virtual option? If there were, instead of 20, there's 4 or there's 2. Has there been any thought at all to not necessarily requiring an in-house virtual option based on the number of kids looking to learn that way?
Angie, could you go backwards 1 slide? And to answer your first question, Craig, we only have what we've seen so far, but from February to March to now at the end of April, we have seen a decrease in the number of students using our in-house virtual options. So, will that continue over the summer? Perhaps. I know some families, might feel more comfortable if their children could get vaccinated. And so if there is a vaccine approved for younger students, that might change, feelings or preferences for students coming back to in-person school as well. So we've seen the number come down, but we don't, unsure whether that would continue over the summer or not.
Uh-huh.
In terms of kind of narrowing how many students we're thinking about, for the survey that we're sending out later this week, we're asking families to just indicate which way they're leaning in terms of utilizing a virtual option or not to get a real preliminary sense of how many students we might be thinking of. But for those families to really make that choice, they probably deserve some more information from us in exactly what our virtual option would look like and what our in-person option would look like. Will we still be having masks at that point in September? Will there still be distancing? What will some of our logistics look like? So I would guess, using this most recent school year as a guide and what some other schools in the county did, I would guess that it would be probably August before we have a very firm sense of how many students we're thinking of for virtual options.
Yeah.
And to your third question about, is there kind of a floor of a number of students? We would be looking to the board for that guidance in terms of what your thoughts are in terms of a cost-benefit analysis. We are aware of some schools in the area that are moving away from having a virtual option, at least one district in the area that's moving away from having a virtual option based on the number of families that they were anticipating utilizing that option for next school year. Is that something we would do? That's, I think, a decision that would rest in the board's hand as well.
Thank you very much. Oh, I had one more thing for Lauren, just your opinion. What does it look like for getting the younger kids, the up to 15-year-olds vaccinated over the summer?
So we are waiting for the federal government to say, to release that the FDA says the vaccine is safe enough, and the grouping will be probably 12-year-olds and up. So looking at, 12 to 15, Public health had, in our public health call last week, had shared it could be any day now that happens. It's really hard to know, but it is looking promising.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anything else, folks?
I think something that we'll also have to watch is that our area counties, again, that haven't had some of the same interactions with public health, are starting to examine what length, will they have a virtual option at all? Because what will the length of quarantine be? Some of them are looking at a 7-day quarantine with a negative test, which means those children might be out for 5 days. And would their school district invest in someone that has flu, mono, some of those other illnesses that would keep a kid out for sometimes 5, 10, 15 days, particularly mono? So that's what our area county superintendents have been starting to discuss. And I know that filtered into last week's Dane County superintendent's conversation a little bit too. So I think in a lot of things we're trying to plan for making sure that we can meet the needs of our community, but have a reality as well of what can we do with the resources we have. So, and you can certainly send in more questions to us between now and whatever day it is that we start reporting back on this.
Do you have any sort of a feel if we are going to, if it's going to be necessary to purchase more technology? Do you have a feel for what kind of hit we're going to take in this next school year, spending for technology?
I think we've always been positioned good for a 1-to-1, and we already have our budget for next year and the devices that we need. It becomes more of what would we invest if we were going to do some synchronous concurrent learning, and we would have to make some of those decisions rather early. For instance, our WMCF plan that was supposed to happen over spring break with 30 rooms being updated with their teacher display area, we received a notice the 2 days before we were starting that the ship was still stuck in port and the equipment hadn't been unloaded yet. So the supply chain will be a challenge for all.
That's a challenge everywhere.
Right.
You know.
Anyways, that's.
I would say, if you're committing to a year, just one thing to think about, I'm not saying that you shouldn't commit to a year, but as vaccines become more available, that's probably going to change some families' views on whether they need to be virtual or not. The likelihood that 12 through 15 will be vaccinated before the next school year is pretty high. After that, of course, we don't know when, the next age range that they're testing is 6 months and up. So we don't know when that will happen, but let's say it happens by the end of the year. That could really change the needs for virtual learning. And I realize you can't predict that, but it's just something to think about from a cost perspective.
Without a doubt. I think when it became apparent that all of our folks here at the district were going to get vaccinated, the clinic was set up. And the feel I got from speaking to folks is that there was a tremendous sense of relief once they got their vaccines done, regardless of how they kind of felt about it leading up to it. So I would imagine that might very well be true if we can get some of the younger kids vaccinated, that mom and dad might rethink, what to do in terms of in-house or virtual, for sure. Okay, anything else? No, thank you very much, Melissa, Lauren.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And I'm hearing a lot of questions about the cost associated with our virtual options, so we'll make sure to include some estimates or details about that when we present our plan to you. And then the board can, give us feedback in terms of, do you want us to have this commitment for a full year, or do you want us to just have a shorter term commitment? And we can go from there as we see all of the details laid out and the costs associated with the various options that we're able to present. But there is another area,
Go
there's
ahead.
another area that we'd like some feedback on you about. from you about, which is the potential for an early release or late start schedule for a future school year. The purpose of that time would be similar to what we are currently able to incorporate into our Wednesday schedules. It could include time for teacher collaboration, professional learning, and/or student reports. And these conversations are really a response to feedbacks that have been provided to principals through reflective conversations about what has worked well during this current school year that we want to carry forward, as well as conversations with teachers through MFT and PSERC conversations. The administrative team will spend time evaluating and planning for how to effectively use early release options and determine if early release days are feasible and in what format we could move forward. But this planning is very much in its beginning stages with the administrative team. And before we get too much further with our planning, we wanted to get any questions or feedback from the board to help inform our next steps. So as we continue our planning for potential schedule changes for future school years, what questions or considerations do you have for us to guide our planning?
Anyone?
Well, I would just say that, it's wonderful that you're putting these two together, because I think this Wednesday release day has been so beneficial for the teachers to try to, set up this kind of dual teaching model. And so it's going to be, it relates to all the things that Craig and others have said, Kate as well. If it turns out there's not as much a need, there's not as great a need to have the virtual component, then in some ways the early release is something that is probably not as important. I just think a lot of this, I don't know how you're going to know without the survey, as you say.
And one piece that I should mention is in our planning, we are not currently thinking at all of having full day releases and not on a weekly schedule for a full day. It would be a limited amount of time for those collaboration and professional learning opportunities.
So could I ask them, what are you looking at then at this point? Or probably there's all options out there, but.
Yeah, we're pretty early in our planning. Some things that have been kind of suggested to us by teachers, I've heard people talk about half-day options. I've heard other people talk about 1 or 2 hour early releases. I know there are districts that have, 1 day a week where they get out about an hour early to save some time at the end of the day for collaboration options. We are not far enough along in our planning where we know exactly which model we'd be thinking of. But in our planning, at the front of our mind is the instructional minutes, and making sure that we are, if there is a shorter day once a week or once a month, that those minutes are made up some other way, perhaps by removing those monthly full day PD options in lieu of shorter chunks sprinkled throughout the calendar.
I have a couple of comments. So, first, I've talked to a couple people in other districts. I know Madison School District does something like this, where their Mondays are half days. And the feedback I've gotten from some of the parents is that transportation is a real issue. So for working parents and those who don't fall within the busing, system, it's very difficult to have children get out 1 day a week early. And in addition, for those that have decided to send their kids to an after-school program, there's an increased cost because they're there for extra hours. So I just want to point that out as something that may be what we would consider a burden, I guess, on some families maybe. In addition, I think it's great that we're working to allow teachers more time to plan. I'm wondering if that can be worked into the school day so that, like you said, instructional hours for our children aren't lost, so that those teachers do get extra time, but somehow that those instructional hours continue. Obviously, in the last year and a half, that's been something that our kids have been lacking, and we can't forget why we're all here in the first place, and that's to educate our children. I think there's a balance that we need to find between meeting the needs of our children in the community and meeting the needs of the teachers. So I would just ask that we take that into consideration when we're deciding, after a year and a half of a lot of changes and a lot of fluctuations, to do something like this to our schedule.
Very good. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll echo a couple of themes that Kate brought up, which is I would check with the area childcare and other places to see how that would work. I know that not everyone goes to childcare afterwards, so some of the issues that Kate brought up. But if they do, would CLM and Gingerbread and other places be willing to accommodate that change? I think that if that's the way we're going to go, the community would need to be supportive in that way. So that would be a consideration I would have. I'm curious about, I know that other districts do it, and Kate mentioned Madison. I think the idea that the teachers feel like that time is more valuable for their planning, and that that investment in that time pays off in the classroom is kind of what I would hope for. And so I guess I would ask teachers, what is better? Is it better to have that full day versus those blocks of time? Because in the end, it's going to be equal. They're either going to be PD for one day, or they'll have PD for the early release. So you're not really giving up instructional time. You're just doing it in a different model. So I guess what would be best for teachers, and since they never had this opportunity to try it, I think that that's kind of where this probably has come from, to say what value that is, and that you don't give up then that instructional time. So yeah, I'm really curious about this as well.
Very good. Anyone else? If not, we can move on to...
All right, a couple more things, some district equity leadership updates for me. That's the last piece. To support the board's priority area of embracing opportunities for diversity and addressing challenges of equity, administration has allocated funding for 3 part-time equity leadership positions within the district. The first is Ann Nichols will serve as our administrative lead in the role of district equity coordinator while continuing as an associate principal at McFarland High School. Ann will work in collaboration with district administration as well as all principals and associate principals to support our equity work. She will organize district equity team meetings and facilitate district equity professional development planning. In addition to that role, we are currently looking for 2 teachers to serve as early childhood through 5th grade and 6th through 12th grade equity team leaders. These individuals will have a co-curricular contract similar to our current grade level or content area team leaders, and they will serve as an equity lead. They'll attend building equity team meetings and collaborate with Ann to coordinate efforts across the district so that each of our buildings are working collaboratively with common goals. So we're really excited to share more, and that we have already Ann in this position, and to see recognize more teacher leaders as we continue this work going forward. Before I turn it over to Lauren to finish up, any questions about that piece?
I think I'll just say, because you were in the meeting, Melissa, we were talking about how this intersects with the grant. And Jeffrey Lewis and Aaron and you and I were talking about this. And it sounds like it's very complementary, and he had some really great ideas for determining how to best decide who the 2 teacher leaders would be by getting feedback from parents and students. And I thought that that was just a really excellent idea. I wanted to bring it forward again.
Thank you.
Do you have any ideas how you would propose to gather that information? Because I think it's a great idea. I really do. It's just, I'm wondering how we would go about doing that.
How
How would we go about asking students or parents
Yeah.
for
Would
recommendations?
you do it as part of another survey?
Well, if we did it, aligned with some of the work that's already been that's going on, it would be easy to use the format that's already there, which is the natural circles of support. Now, that would be one idea. I think that might be, and I don't want to give an idea because it's really up to you all to do it. But there's certainly ways to connect with
That's great.
students and parents right now.
I would defer to you on that.
Yeah, and I'll defer to them because they know.
Okay, then it's right back where we
Because they heard
started.
it. So they'll brilliantly come up with a creative idea to do this.
I think the current group of parents that we have easiest access to get feedback from would be the McFarland Equity Project. We have regular meetings between administration and the leaders of the education portion of that group. And so that was a group that I was thinking of reaching out to get some parent feedback. It wouldn't necessarily be representative of the entire community, but it would be a group of parents who are passionate and involved already in issues of equity. All right. If there aren't any other questions for me, I will turn it over to Lauren for upcoming events.
All right, thank you, Melissa. All right, so I will be foreshadowing with you some upcoming presentation and events that you will have as board members. So our 2 new board members, I believe you should have received an email already from Angie letting you know that May 13th, there's the Dane County Equity Consortium workshop. And then for all of our board members, the Dane County Equity Consortium workshop on June 24th. If you have not gotten the email or if you have questions about it, please see Angie. So our next board meeting on May 17th, you will have a presentation from PZERC and CZERC, which are professional and support staff employee relations committees. And the high school administration will also give a presentation about class rank. And you will, like we foreshadowed today, receive a presentation on our virtual in-house option. In June, we are hoping to give some updates on the district equity work. And then June, July, have another conversation about our potential strategic planning work. So that is what's kind of coming up in the next few weeks. And as always, we like to end all of our presentations with appreciations. So our first appreciation is for Chris Dirk. He is one of our PE teachers at the high school. So Chris Dirk has had to adjust many things to teach PE online to students during virtual classes. He accommodates his in-person kids and doesn't forget or dismiss his virtual learners. This week, I witnessed him lying on the floor in front of his laptop webcam, teaching how to properly stretch and how to do abs in his virtual learning to his virtual learning kids at home. He didn't just explain the move and move on. He got down on the ground and showed them. He's had to pivot several times to make sure he's getting interactions with all of his students. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, IMMS staff, for continuing to prioritize safety protocols, masking, distancing, seating charts for close contacts, while also creating a warm and welcoming classroom, including getting outside whenever possible. This week starts the first day of Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you to all of our teachers for always making our school environments a safe and welcoming environment for all of our students. And lastly, thank you to our food service staff for your hard work making sure all of our students have access to meals. And as always, thank you to everyone for everything that we contribute to make this district a better place. And that concludes our presentation for today.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine.
Okay, since we're still in that agenda item, can I ask about the Dane County Equity Consortium meetings? Will all of us attend on the 24th?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Okay. Okay.
I will be.
You will be. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're going to do it over Zoom again, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
I'm assuming so. I was just curious if we had at least a few people that was going to go and do it, because it's always really good. And last time they broke us up into districts and I was the only one. So I was hoping that other district people would come.
We'll
I
get
think they
some
put
of
me
it.
with Oregon, and I made a great connection with their superintendent. So it all worked out well.
So we'll follow up with details about how they're going to manage that
Perfect.
meeting.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. As usual, great work. Keep it up. We're headed in the right direction. Thank you very much, Melissa and Lauren. Membership audit results.
All right, so I have 8B through 8G. Did you want me to just kind of move through those, Craig? Or?
I think.
Okay, so 8B is our membership audit. The membership audit is a random audit that the state of Wisconsin determines which school districts will be audited. At least 1/4 of the school districts each year annually will be picked. And we were fortunate to have this year, which was one of the most unique years for our staff to make sure that they were accurately counting students on what's known as the third Friday in September count, which affects the revenue cap, and then the second Friday in January count, which affects the equalized aid formula for the upcoming school year. So with that, what I wanted to let you know is of the 30 items that we had to go through and compile from, you're notified at the end of January, beginning of February, and then you work with your auditor to provide the information for them to do their testing. Hats off to Michelle Eversole, Judy Catterall, our administrative assistants in each of the facilities. Out of the 2,297 students for our revenue cap, we only had one student that in a net that we overcounted. Just a reminder, or for those that sometimes haven't followed what the revenue cap is and how membership affects it, it's 2 3-year rolling averaged counts for how you get your average number of students to apply towards the amount of money you would receive for revenue cap minus state aid equals property tax. So one child difference is really 1/3, but it's actually then compared to the 2 rolling averages. So having one student off with all people involved and the nature of how we had students coming and going, homeschool, not homeschool, virtual, not virtual, hats off to our team. So that is the update related to the audit. I wish they would do the financial audit where you just get randomly, so every summer wasn't a financial audit. That would be kind of nice.
Well, kudos to everybody. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's great. USDA did announce, many of you probably saw it in the news, they will be operating the food service reimbursements the same way that they have since last April of 2020. Can't believe I'm forgetting that year already. So what that means is our families will have access to free breakfast and free lunches. Our planning at this point for the upcoming school year is full meals, breakfast, and lunch as a traditional year, with 5 days of instruction moving forward. So that's the USDA update. Just wanted to make sure everybody, with regards to food service, the Superheroes Day for food service employees is also this coming Friday. So, Craig, you had a question.
Yeah. If we don't have a high enough number of folks that use or participate, like we ran into the situation where we didn't have enough folks that were taking the free and discounted meals, so it impacted us in a bad way financially. Could that potentially happen again?
I don't see that with in-person learning in the model we're planning for. Our in-person learning right now, elementary, let's see, your K2 is producing over 400 meals. That's typical on a given day. Our staff's doing an amazing job. They're also getting Wednesday meals packed up and weekend meals packed up as well. So we'll be seeing what happens with the weekends as well next year. That might still be a piece there. So from a financial perspective, if we do have in-person learning 5 days a week or full days.
Then we should be good.
Food service is certainly going to be back on balance. But yes, it did need some subsidization from the general fund this year. But we're finishing off strongly. That team, including Barb War's leadership with regards to our daycares, helping them as well, has been very helpful on the financial side if we just looked at that. But hats off to them. And in some ways, hats off to Lauren Arango and her team. Many kudos to our social workers, always making sure that we were reaching out to families that needed it, weren't responding, and or the amount of time that a lot of our administrative staff would go out and deliver meals to as well.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a commitment. It's the one constant we've had since last April, has been 13 months of serving food. And I do hope that the USDA does look at this as something into the future, that access to meals for all in a better financial way would be a real win for our communities. So,
Okay.
So that's that. What else did I have there?
Berserk update?
Berserk and Scissor. I did already give you several of the dates coming up. Again, Thursday, 4:30 Berserk at Waubesa. Berserk will be reviewing, they'll be reviewing last Wednesday's, April 28th subcommittee. The subcommittee did 5 things specifically. They reviewed the salary placement practices of our school district and how some aspects of the current handbook date back to language that was bargained back in 1992. The current language should be reviewed to determine if it meets the district employment goal to attract, retain, and reward employees. Number 2, the committee learned more about how some of the language in the handbook with regards to how compensation practices and benefit packages interrelate and have been trade-offs over the years to balance resources of the school district, financial resources. The committee also reviewed the financial components that are contained in the professional staff handbook that comprise of about $18 million of the $32 million budget. Specifically, how changes with salary schedule changes may impact other components of compensation. The committee confirmed that between the employee survey and the area district comparables, the school district current compensation model or salary schedule is low compared to its market. The committee also briefly examined information from area districts that have moved away from traditional salary schedules to different compensation models. The guidance that this subcommittee will have for PSERC on Thursday is PSERC should review short-term changes to the 21-22 and 22-23 salary schedule. They will also look at making a recommendation to look forward past those years for compensation, and also take a look at more language items throughout the handbook, including some things like health benefit options, paid time off, meeting compensation, co-curricular structure and how that's put together, and retirement benefits. One of the largest recommendation will be that the committee should begin meeting more frequently. The committee has typically tried to only meet 3 times a year. These are pretty weighty items to just be trying to have an introduction in the fall, a little bit more deliberation in February, and then try to come to some conclusion in May, which is usually already a very stressful time of year. So I did speak with Wayne, who will be coming in as Dr. Anderson as our interim, to talk to him about did he believe in that kind of structure too, as well, to not only for our professional staff, but also our support staff. So we have an upcoming meeting on Thursday. The next, yes?
Is that something that we can attend or don't attend?
So you had your committee appointments this evening.
Okay.
But any member, it is posted for both PSERC and CSERC, so any member of the board and of the public and of those that are not part of the public or professional staff employees relation committee or the support staff employees.
Absolutely.
It's unique for, when I was talking to Dr. Anderson, because most of the districts he's been in have always had subcommittees of the board that have like a human resource committee but since you're a committee of the whole, because you're only 5 members, these kind of are the 2 committees that are likely the most unique, that in another district would be like a committee, personnel committee. So, support staff had a meeting, April 27th, last week. Weeks are starting to blend a little bit. We have an upcoming meeting on May 11th. That meeting is of the whole committee, and that will be at 4 p.m. at middle school. The last meeting covered a review of the surveys. Similar professional staff did a survey. We also did one for support staff. We also reviewed some of our goals that we had already had back in February of 2020 with regards to health insurance, and also a review of our current wage comparisons in our current market in this area. So our next meeting, we'll be looking at short-term, summer, and long-term activities so that we can continue to build upon what we've started this spring. Typically, we will have salary considerations for the school board usually by the 2nd meeting of May, if not the 1st meeting of June. But I think we're in a good place that we'd be able to come back in about 14 days, since we have these 2 meetings in between to come forward. Similarly, I'll also have budget data to go with that, because there are budget implications of what we have to do with regards to market. 8D, I'm going to call it 8D and E. I just wanted to let the board know that we're coming upon our 5th year of our agreement with Dane Health Insurance for the 21-22 school year. Dane has reached out due to the unique nature of this last year, requesting us to consider a extension to take us from 21-22 to the end of 22-23, which would allow us to get a better handle on some firm planning for our next large multi-year planning that we typically have done well with. So,
is that something you'd be in favor of?
yeah, the renewal cap is, and we'll discuss it at our PZERC and CZERC, but very favorable for our school district. We've had a commitment to them, they've had a commitment to us, and this is welcome for us, because you do need pretty much anywhere between 12 to 18 months to plan for your next 4-5-year multi-year plan. So we'll be discussing that again.
And we typically sign a 3-year agreement?
Typically 4 or 5.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it seemed like from both survey results, people don't want to necessarily change insurance very often. So I didn't sound like people were itching to go to a different provider. It was more like, don't make us change that often. So it seemed like an okay time to wait.
I think historically that's kind of been the case, in that we have a large number of younger staff that aren't particularly fond of changing doctors and such when they have pediatric concerns.
When we've conducted our surveys, the majority of our staff, we've had to shift just because of how the market has went. I mean, as recently as 15 years ago, we had 3 carriers, and then all of a sudden those 3 carriers were not going to, they said, you either pick one of us or none of us. And then we had a climate where GHC went out there for everybody's business, particularly school districts. And at that time, Dane couldn't even compete with them. So we did have a period of time with GHC exclusively, and then Dane wanted to win us back, and they did. And that's why we're within that 5-year plan right now, with one more year remaining, and also now another year of an extension that's being offered. So that's some great news. I mean, that's wonderful. And I will say that the maximum guarantee increase is lower than all of the counterparts I'm seeing within even some of our Dane County districts and our surroundings. So again, we have a pretty good group that's knowing. We're geographically in a good spot as well. It's very helpful with that. So more to come on that.
In general, do we have a pretty healthy staff to keep our rate,
Well,
our
I think
premiums
the
low?
best way to look at that is our utilization rates. How often do we use, for every dollar that goes in for premium, are we using all of those premium dollars or over those premium dollars? We've had really good trends for a number of years. After we signed the 5-year deal, we've been averaging 10% utilization over. So, but they're still willing to make a commitment to have a max cap for the 22-23 year, which
Excellent.
is unusual. Item 8F, which will be an action item coming up, is the Village of McFarland is requesting dedication of right-of-way along portions of Outlot 135A, which is the Conrad Albion Primary School land. That was the land that when the school district bought the Conrad property, and we combined it with all the other pieces of property, there's a right-of-way situation. So Danchin Homes is developing the new mixed-use building at 5411 Bashford, which is on the corner of Bashford and Johnson Street. That is presently owned by the Village of McFarland. It was bought through TIF, because it was a blighted area. Development includes ground floor commercial space for Danchin Homes and 3 second-story apartments. To enable the development to proceed, the village was looking to clean up the right-of-way of corner of Bashford and Johnson. No road construction or sidewalk reconstruction is planned for that area. The request is solely to dedicate portions of the Outlot 135 that are existing roads and sidewalks as a right-of-way. Right now, without our knowledge, we own the sidewalks and the portion of the street that's a public right-of-way. We don't necessarily want to own curb, road, sewer, water, utilities. So Andrew Bremer and I from the village, he and I have been working on this for a while after it was noted that there's a portion of land, and there's a picture in your packets. From a historical perspective, it goes back to 1951. And then there was some construction and reconstruction of the streets over there. So the action item in summary is to clean up where the right-of-way is, and that should not be part of the school district's property. It should be part of the village's right-of-way. So that's what that dedication of right-of-way action item is about. Those are all of the items I had for my pieces in the administration report.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Any other questions or comments? If not, then we can move along to future school board meeting dates. We have May 17th, June 7th, June 21, all here, I assume?
Yes.
And did we decide to go back to 7 o'clock starts, or did we make a determination on that last time?
We did that we would continue with 7, and there is some planning that there might be some either closed sessions or work sessions would be put at the front of the meeting as opposed to at the back end of the meeting.
Okay.
If we were to maintain 7 o'clock.
Okay, does that work good for everybody? Satisfactory? All right, thank you very much. Action items. Action on approval of a dedication deed for Outlot 135A, 6009 Johnson Street. I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
Arlen,
I'll second. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
Christine?
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Thank you for cleaning that up.
Hearing none? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, action on second reading and adoption of policies. Too numerous to read at this point in time. I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Christine? And Bruce. Any discussion or questions?
I do have one small question, and I noticed Scott's.
Yep. We have a guest, Scott Brown, who's been our Neola representative.
There he is.
Blast from the past.
I know. Look at the shirt, Arlen, right here. There you go.
Thank you very much for helping us out, Dr. Brown. Proceed,
You're welcome.
please.
Christine?
Well, it was really helpful to know Scott's role and what Neola does for the new board members. So I was wondering if you could share, and then I have one small question about a policy. So.
Sure, awesome. So first of all, it was really nice to meet you, Christine, the other day and working on the Four Lakes 5-year review. And congratulations to Kate and to Bruce on their election to the board. McFarland has a rich tradition of excellent boardsmanship, and it's exciting to see all of you, even though I'm a ways away. My first board meeting in McFarland I ever attended from home, so. So many years ago, McFarland joined Neola as a policy service. Neola, in essence, is sort of like a CISA, a cooperative policy provider. In McFarland in particular, when we were doing policy on our own, the way we did it was first to meet every other Wednesday in the morning as an administrative team. Then we would draft policy based on sample policies we'd get from the School Board Association. Then we would send them off to the school attorney, who would do an overview of our policy written work and send it back for revisions. We revise it one more time and then send it back to the attorney one final time. Somewhere, I think shortly after I became superintendent, we looked at Neola. I heard about it in my doctoral program at Edgewood from another superintendent that used it. And I think we were around the 52nd district in the state to go with Neola. And what Neola does is it combines sort of all that work across many districts in the state. So Neola is up to around 290 districts out of 435 in the state right now. So it gives you the idea of how much they've grown just since we were involved. And once you draft with Neola, two leading law firms in the state, one of them you use, which is Strang, so Shannon Lewis is involved, and then also Davidson Kilthau, and then as well, Mike Jelka's firm, because they have a lot of representation that also have Neola, give us a lot of feedback as well. So twice a year, Neola gathers all the feedback from the experience now of the 290 districts, gets information from all our different associations, like the School Board Association and the Business Manager Association. All of that information comes to the Neola attorneys, obviously, and then current court cases. And in essence, those two law firms draft policy across all 290 districts, offering boards choices for policy and what they might choose. So even though it's a cooperative policy development, what I've noticed is that for the most part, every board that I work with makes different choices within their policy and has a lot of custom policy. So you're a part of that group. Dr. Anderson, who's coming to join you for a year, just finished joining Neola in Belmont, and so he's familiar with that process as well. Once you sort of get the hard work done, which we, I think, did many years ago in drafting our policy, then in essence, the total cost for Neola to update your policy and produce special updates and actually do the work of producing your policy changes after you approve them, it costs you about $3,500 a year. And we, even back in the day, were spending around $20,000 on policies. So as a former business manager, I thought it was pretty cost efficient. And in my own experience, since I retired, I joined Neola, to do this work, which I really love. But I started with 13 districts, and I think I'm just over 50 right now, 3 years later. So it gives you an idea of how quickly and by word of mouth really Neola is growing. So I'm proud that our district is a part of it. Certainly don't ever feel like my relationship with the district ever forces you to use Neola. If you'd ever separate from Neola, you get to keep all the policies you've worked on. You just have to keep the copyright on there, but you can start developing your own policies. So it's not like you're trapped into something as well. I have a couple questions as well concerning the policies, which I wanted to ask you all, but I'll take Christine's question first.
Okay. So I just wanted to just share for those of us who are newer, I'll put myself in that category. So this is the second time we're going through them. The first time you were not at the meeting, so you didn't get them. Now you have them, so you go through them and you can ask questions, and you'll see through highlighting and striking out where the policies have changed, okay? And like Mr. Brown was saying, oh, I'm sorry, was that okay?
Yeah, I didn't say.
Okay.
Continue.
What's really helpful is they skim off all the legislation, state and federal policies to update things so that we have very current policy, current to whatever's happening, even within an administration, which could change like in the next month. So that just kind of gives you the overview. Okay, so my question's really small. We have some very specific policies that we did add because of our diversity and equity initiatives. My question is about policy 0141.1. It's about student representation at board meetings.
Yes.
So it's, it feels a little vague. I don't know who to talk to. Like, who am I directing this to? It feels a little vague because it basically says that we will, instead of relying on student council representatives, we'll try to get more representative of all students, okay? So there's no information about how often we're going to do that. Are we going to do it annually, for example? How do we identify them? Because it's been really easy in the past. 2 student council representatives come, as we've been seeing. Now it's a different policy, and I'm wondering, how do we incorporate, or is that just a practice that we'll put into place, or do we change the actual policy to say this will be looked at annually, and who are we going to do it at the middle school and high school levels? It just feels a little vague right now. That's my comment.
So when I discussed these with former Superintendent Fidel, the thought was that the student council would be given the charge to find a way to broaden their representation, to bring different students into board meetings, rather than just the 2 that they normally would have, but instead they would look to set up a schedule and try to, really seek to have more diversity and representation for students to come to your board meeting and then report back to student council. So I think the goal was to maybe look at if there was a way to give the actual student, government group some ownership of this, understanding that the board is asking them to do this by changing their policy or their bylaw.
Okay, let me just scroll to it then, because I don't remember it saying that they were from student council. Is that? I need to find the policy. Can anyone tell me the number, page number?
Yeah, I can share the screen with you guys right now if you want me to. Good way. Oh, I'm disabled. I can't.
Christine, are you suggesting?
It's 141.1.
So Scott, I was maybe going to ask the question. This is Jeff, if you can see me. Would it maybe make sense to pull this one out of the packet for further review, so that we could also engage with the high school leadership as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the other one we should maybe hold out then is, like, this policy is cited in a policy that was also added, just looking for it here.
Oh, you know what, it's in the second packet, because the second packet is the ones that are very specific to us.
Right.
Yeah,
The
okay.
policy on district resolution in support of diversity and equity, we will make that policy 131 or 0141.1 is revised to broaden representation of the student body of the school board to better reflect the composition. And in the actual policy, it talks about that there'll be a process established. So the board is saying in their bylaw and looking to the high school administration and the student council to develop a process that broadens the representation. I don't know that you would put in the bylaw their process, but the bylaw directs them to develop a process, which I assume they'll do you know, at some point.
Right, right. Thank you for pointing that out. I think my concern, and first of all, I have no, I mean, I don't want this to be a reflection on the student council representatives that have been coming here every meeting. This is not at all. This actually stems from work that was done a year ago in the summer about diversity and equity broadly. So I think the intent of that idea was that, I don't know if this policy as it stands right now is meeting the intent. So I do feel like, as Jeff suggested, that maybe we could pull it out and look back at that stuff, maybe even in the working session, if we do that over the summer, and look at it, because I don't think it's meeting the intent of what it was supposed to.
So perhaps in 2105.01, we could change the language to policy 0141.1, student representation at board meetings will be revised to broaden, and then you can still go ahead with the rest of the work here.
I'm sorry, Scott, can you say that again, please?
So we cite policy 0141.1, and again, this is custom policy.
Oh, right, yep, okay.
But we cite that we will,
right,
that happen, because in theory, you're voting on.
Right.
But we can change it to just say, will be revised, and then in the future, we'll change it to is revised on that particular policy. I still would encourage you to pass your custom policy 2105.01, which is district resolution in support of diversity and equity.
Right.
So that would be a pretty clear change.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think that's a good idea.
All right, so I only have one question, and you guys may have already worked on this, but Neola put together, not required at all, but you voted on the first vote on them, 2 different policies. One is about board member information requests, which you'll to request far more information than like a public records request. And the purpose of it is to channel those requests through the school board as a whole to make sure that, you know, one board member isn't dominating a lot of time doing requests that the rest of the board may feel are not necessary. And I think that's fine. I just wanted to let you know that's one sort of unique policy. But the other one that I need an answer on, and maybe you discussed it, is a policy about board behavior and code of conduct. And there's a choice in there, which my districts have been entirely split on. So there's not a right answer or a wrong answer. But I'll sum it this way. There's a choice in there, which is now unchecked, so I don't know if you discussed it, about cell phone use during board meetings. And it's due to some litigation in districts during COVID that people were found out, board members were found out that they were texting or receiving text outside of public comments or between board members during a board meeting. So the policy requires if somebody's going to text during a board meeting that they step away and probably, you know, it doesn't say it this way, but would ask the chair and say, I'm going to go use my phone. Maybe it's a child-related matter or picking someone up after sport, something like that. Some boards have said that's a solution looking for a problem we don't have. And some have felt that's probably a good thing to have in place, you know, sort of given what we learned with virtual meetings and things like that. So we don't have to approve it tonight, but right now it remains unchecked unless you all discussed it last time.
No, we didn't discuss anything last time, yeah.
It's called,
That's
it's a subheading in 0144.5 called board member use of electronic communication prohibited. And part of my feedback personally would be, if it hasn't been something that you all, you know, feel strongly about, you always have access to change it at any time. You know, because right now you wouldn't know that the Brewers are losing on you if you didn't have, you know, if this passes. So it's really important, I think.
I thought it was interesting reading through the policies, how much I thought were developed or in response to COVID. You know, just the slight wording and different wording here and there, like, oh yeah, that was a COVID thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, there are things that need to be tightened up, you know, that we weren't really aware of before, I think. Anything else for Scott? If not,
just so I can sort of conclude this, I'm not going to make that selection about prohibiting cell phones at a board meeting, and then you all understand that down the road, if you want to, you could always add it back in. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay.
What you think?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Great night.
Look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say, as I've observed, with a smaller 5-member board, you know, most boards are 7 to 9 members, and where that's probably a little bit more better to have that policy versus being, you're in a smaller room, you're always present with each other. So I think Scott's right on leaving it unchecked.
Frankly, I've never even thought about it. You know, it's just one of those things that just communicating via text with another board member during a board meeting has always just struck me as being very inappropriate. You know, I wouldn't even, the thought wouldn't cross my mind.
It's a joke.
Yeah. So, okay. We shall move on to administration recommends approval of the attached 2021-22 CISA 2 contract.
Oh, wait, we gotta.
You'd have to.
We gotta.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Any further discussion on the
Do you have
policy, readings of the
questions?
policy?
No, okay. It's over. They're very overwhelming at first. Okay.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Hold on.
Are we gonna hold that one out then?
Yeah, we have to change the motion if we're going to. So I am not saying aye.
Well, do we?
Can we?
We can.
Yeah, we can amend the
we can
motion.
amend it.
Okay.
I think you mentioned you wanted to, but I don't think we did it
Yep.
formally.
We can amend the motion to pull policy
0141.
0141.1, student representatives at board meetings.
Mhm.
Would anyone like to give that motion a shot, the amendment?
I move we pass both sets of policies except for 0141.1. That's my motion.
Okay.
Are you recommending a revision to 2105.01 to the policy 0141.0
Oh,
will
yes.
be revised?
Yes,
further?
thank you.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
also, yes.
Okay, so Christine and Bruce, did you second?
Yeah, I can second that.
Any discussion? Not hearing any? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we go back and vote on the amended administration recommends approval of second reading and adoption of the attached policies, including the amendment to pull 0141.1 out for further discussion.
think we just.
Craig, I think we just did that.
You just accomplished that.
Yep.
By
Yep.
approving the amendment?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Okay. Action on 2021-22 CISA 2 contract. I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
Harlan, second?
I'll second.
Christine, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Action on denial of student open enrollment status. At this time, we recommend the denial of one McFarland High School student's open enrollment status for the 2021-22 school year due to habitual truancy during first and second semester of the 2020-21 school year. 2009 Wisconsin Act 304 states that a non-resident school board may notify the parent of a habitual truant that the pupil may not attend the non-resident school district in the following semester or school year. Please reference the attached recommendation memo. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
A second? I'll second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. And I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Anyone? Nobody wants to leave. Okay, Bruce?
The newest members are like.
We got Kate? There we go. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0, and we are adjourned
8:56.
at 8:56 p.m. Thank you very much, one and all, both here with us this evening and via Zoom. See you next time.